Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Ultra Confusion interview. This time we have Brett Taylor, founder of My Dog Zorro. So, Brett, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Myself, hello, I'm Brett Taylor, as mentioned, and I started the company My Dog Zorro, and Zorro is literally here right now. He's like pushing me with his nose. I will show him to you in a minute.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, so I founded the studio My Dog Zorro back in the middle of 2015 in June, and to make my own indie games. And I've been making games, like working on games and stuff professionally and before professionally for I guess about the last 8 years.
Okay.
And I've been working on Linelight since I founded the studio, and also actually since Zorro was born. So that's a nice little, coincidence there. And that's been about a year and a half. Anyway, so Linelight just released. As of today, it's been 16 days because today is the whatever, like the what day is it? It's like the 15th or something. 16.
16th, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, oh yeah. Actually, that's easy to count how many days it's been.
Yeah.
Just how many days in February? Anyway, yeah. So it just released. Yeah. I mean, does that basically answer the question?
Yeah. Well, actually, my follow-up question was, is there really a Zorro? So you already answered that one
Oh,
for me.
yeah. I mean, now he's just at my feet here, so it's very dark down there. So when he comes back up, like
Okay.
what he does, he like if this is like my leg or whatever, he
Uh,
like just puts his head and like my elbow would be here, and he'll like push my elbow up with his nose
yep.
to get my attention, which is adorable. It's equal parts adorable and annoying. Probably more adorable than annoying because like I smile every time it happens. But at the same time, I'm like trying to work, dude.
Yep.
Anyway, he's the best. I love him.
I feel it. I feel you. So, okay, the name of the game is Limelight, and you
Hmm.
basically said it's been in the works for about a year and a half.
Yeah.
So, what was your inspiration for this game?
Inspiration. Oh, yeah. So Limelight actually started. The base idea for it was. So I was at a talk. I don't know if you've heard of the game Mushroom 11, but I know the creators, two of the creators, Itai and Julia, husband and wife team, and they were giving a talk on like just level design, or no, sorry, tutorial design. This is back in, I think it was like April 2015, and like near the end of the talk, I was like, I just daydreamed a little bit about what specifically it was like during a Q&A. I was like, what would be, because Mushroom 11, I don't know if you know the game, but it has very unique method of controlling, and it's pretty yeah, it is one of a kind.
Mhm.
And I was like, what would be interesting ways to interact or control a game, uh, that in a similar vein, completely different from any other game. And I was like, okay, well, what if you could only travel on the floor and the walls,
Mhm.
and you're just like you're one-dimensional a line. And then immediately after, I was like, well, why would there be gravity? Why would there be a room at all? What if it's just all lines?
Mhm.
I was like, that's interesting. Like I can think about it. And I was like, okay, that's kind of neat. And I thought to myself, like, well, how would I program that? I'm like, I had no idea. Right.
Right.
And I've programmed a lot of games.
Mhm.
I used to work at a company called Arcadium for about 3 years making prototypes. So like every 3 weeks
Mhm.
was a different, totally different game project. Um, so I'd had a lot of experience with stuff, all sorts of different, variety of, it's simple and straightforward, mostly 2D, not a lot of stuff games. But with this, I was like, it's so simple. It's like just lines, basically, and you're aligning your own lines. But I didn't know how to program it. So that's actually where Limelight started. Started as a programming project, and it was just a thing that I was really interested in from a programming aspect because it was extremely easy to explain to people,
Mhm.
but way more complicated under the hood. And there was something about that, that juxtaposition that intrigued me and sort of led me to, is ultimately like where I am now.
So, I got a chance to play it a little bit, and I have to say that I'm always a little bit cautious when it comes to games that don't have text. But I have to say that you did a really good job without utilizing, you need to do this and you need to do that. Push this button, push that button. I mean, it's literally like, here's your buttons, which is move, wait, reset. I mean, that's really.
Yeah. Um, yeah, thank you. I
Mhm.
mean, I pretty much anybody, even young kids are able to, play through this game, which is pretty cool too. I mean, the game is so self-explanatory. So,
Mhm.
Arcadium is a casual gaming company, so I made a lot of casual games which require, tutorials and stuff like that in the beginning.
Mhm.
So working on Limelight was just like it was almost like a shock because of how easy it is to explain to people. Like everybody already knows how to play the game. They just don't know the mechanics of it because literally all you do is move, and that is a thing that people understand. Like that is universally understood. That particular mechanic. And the fact that things are compressed on lines doesn't really affect that understanding. So yeah, I've been really grateful at how easy it was. Like that was not one of my concerns. Tutorialization, like teaching people mechanics, like the game did that very naturally for me. That's it. I mean, of course, I spent a lot of time and thought and energy into making the level design like really streamlined and making sure that that I'm exploring concepts at the right pace, et cetera, et cetera. So that's all in there too. But like getting people to understand the mechanics that the game sort of does that for me, which has been great.
So, what would you say is one of the biggest obstacles you had to overcome for making this game?
Working alone, being the only person on this. I mean, that's for multiple reasons. Like, I guess the two reasons that come to mind now are programming. I needed programming help so many times, like mostly early on in the game, in the development, because I thought it would be really visual because it's like, it's visual or whatever. It's like, and I'm a very visual person, and I'm good at programming visual stuff, not so much with like things that I can't really see. And like so much of it, most of the code is just pure data. Like all of it is like really abstract. So that was really challenging writing a lot of the logic, especially like the World 3 logic when you're like a full line. That was not. And also, oh man, there's so many rabbit holes that I fell into, so many of them, because like each one problem was actually like 10 really interesting problems, but each of those problems was like 6 really challenging, completely unique problems that I'd never solved before, which is like fun in its own exercise. But when that's like every problem you're trying to solve is like just this, nonstop, like, oh my God, I didn't realize that and that and that, then it starts to get a little bit overwhelming. And I'm like, I just want the mechanics to work. So a lot of like the early code is, I've had to rewrite a bunch of stuff, not too much, but I've had to rewrite things because I like eventually discovered like, yeah, it was crap when I wrote that. I just wanted the mechanics sort of to be done. Anyway, so kind of digressing a little bit, which I tend to do sometimes. But yeah, if I had another programmer, that would be a lot easier. And a producer, if I had a producer, that would have been transformative, I think, because I didn't realize that. I mean, there were a lot of struggles, but I'll just, I guess, talk about these two. We could be here, like I could go on this question forever, because there's no shortage of challenges working alone. But yeah, like having a producer, basically somebody who's keeping track of like the schedule and stuff like that. Like being your own producer in the beginning for most of actually Linelight's development. Like imagine having a producer who every time you ask for an extension or anything, they always say yes.
Right.
Which is like the worst. It's like that's terrible, Then like you struggle to get things done and to finish things. So that was I basically had to like learn because I've managed people before, I've been managed before, but managing yourself, and I was like, okay, managing myself might just be a combination of the two skills. It's not. It's a third different skill, which blew my mind. And I like that you're nodding. You're like, so I'm assuming that maybe you've experienced this too. At least some extent.
I've definitely where for this website Alter Confusion, being basically the publisher, the editor, all that stuff, and having to get interviews done and articles and reviews. I'm like, nah, I'll just put it off one more day. Yeah, I'll put it off one more day. And then I also have dabbled in development of pencil to paper and also digital, and so I know when you're working by yourself, when the momentum's going, you go, and sometimes you burn your ass out that way, or sometimes when the momentum is not happening, you're just like, I'll catch it later, and then it just starts stretching out, and then you're like, oh, then you really feel bad about it because you've basically given yourself 4 more extensions than you should have for one small problem.
Yeah, and being like, I don't know, I don't want to say like being a cog in a machine, but that's the best metaphor I have.
Right.
That's so much. It's like in so many ways it's so much easier. There are pros and cons, of course, but like. At least maybe not the cog metaphor, but like having somebody be the one, like just literally having somebody tell you do these things is like 10 times more powerful than you, like generally for me telling myself. So I've been trying to leverage my own behaviors and like find patterns in my behaviors, not like scientifically, but just like see what works, experiment with stuff. And I'm finding that, like there is, writing things down on a to-do list in a certain place. It has to have checkboxes. Without the checkboxes, I know that sounds kind of like a simple thing. It's like, yeah, that might make a big difference. No, it's like that's the difference between I'm doing it or I'm not doing it, which like ultimately is whatever, it's a big
Right.
deal. Yeah, so I've sort of found ways to work around that, and I'm still getting better at it, but yeah, that's been challenging. Like just being the only person, and also like I don't want to say spiritually, but like team spirit wise,
Yeah.
like I'm the one who I've got to be my own cheerleader too,
Yep.
because there's really nobody else, championing, whatever.
Yeah.
Nobody like going like, yeah, you can do it.
Right.
I've got to like do that for myself, and some days like I just some days you just don't feel that, and yeah, so that's like I could go on about this for a while, but those were pretty challenging. So I'm looking forward to, and also like sharing the failures and the successes and like the challenges and the wonderful moments. Nobody really like not sharing that with anybody. It's like I mean, like it's not a problem with the happy moments really, but like with the challenges, you certainly want like at least like just like walking through the darkness and mystery and terror and anxiety with somebody else. Like after having just released a product or something like that. That's just, I've got, having friends and family or whatever makes a world of a difference. But there is a substantial difference between people who support you, like from the stands, and people who are in the arena with you. And being the only person in the arena, yeah, I've made my point.
I feel your pain. So I know this might be an interesting question for you since you are a team of one, but when you're not developing, what do you like to do? Is there a time where you don't develop?
Yeah. I mean, recently I've been having to take off a lot of time. Actually, over the last couple of months, I discovered, because I've been focusing on publishing and not actually developing the game, certain things take out certain amounts of energy from me, and some tasks give me energy. So, and like, a few things might be neutral or whatever. So if I'm like designing levels or whatever, that might give me energy, and I'm like, yeah, and then I can tackle other harder tasks. But near the end of the development, I was just sort of like on the dregs of like what are like the last things that I've not stuff that I've necessarily been putting off, but I've done all the fun stuff already, and now it's the more the unenjoyable, unpleasant things that I don't enjoy and that I'm not really good at either, and those are like that's kind of a double whammy there. So getting to a point because of that, I realized. I was like I was not functioning if I could only work so many hours a day, and some days like 4 hours I would be completely toasted. I would be just done, absolutely fried. Like I've done. I think the fastest it took for me to get like from like I can do this, I can do anything, sort of mindset in the morning, to just like face down on the carpet like moaning. It was like about a half hour of one particular publishing task. And I was like, no, we can do this. And like over the course of about 30 minutes, I was like, I just fell down a staircase metaphorically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I've been taking off time for myself. And I think it's extremely important, because it enables me to like think more clearly. Oh, there's certainly a balance, and I'm still working on that, but it enables me to think clearly and just sort of focusing on how I'm feeling, and sort of addressing that by taking time off and stuff. And what I do in my spare time is I play video games, which is like, I mean, I know going from one screen to another with within the same genre, it doesn't feel interesting to say, but like, I mean, making a video game is publishing a video game is completely different from like even working on a game. I mean, it's game related, but it's like the difference between farming and like, working at a manufacturing plant that like processes, whatever the crops or something like that.
Right.
Like they're very, very different roles. Yeah, so playing games.
So my follow-up question is, since when you're taking time off, you're playing games, do you find yourself critiquing the games you're playing? Like, are you like,
I can't avoid that.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's not like I don't like go into game, like I don't start playing a game like thinking to myself like, oh, I'm going to be critical about this, but I certainly I don't even think about it. I mean, I look at I try to take apart games, like what they do. So I just started playing Little Big Planet 3 a couple of days ago, and that was like weird for me. Like it took me a while to get through the game, because I was just like it was hard for me not to I couldn't stop until I had figured out how they did, or like what was happening on the screen.
Right.
Not necessarily like how they did something, but I'm like, I want to understand all the individual facets of like this one particular effect, what makes it feel like this. So just like playing really slowly and like exploring the menu and like basically like putting my hands all over the walls before I move on to the next room.
Right.
So yeah, I certainly like look at games critically in that way. And I think, yeah, probably games more than anything. Like, I certainly like, I think about that with movies and TV shows a bit, but, you know, probably about, I guess, the same amount that movies and TV shows overlap, like the similarities that they have with games. Yeah, because, you know, I'm just making, I work on this stuff, you know?
Right.
So, yeah. I mean, when you say critique, like,
so
you mean, what exactly do you mean?
So for me, since I'm a reviewer, I've got a QA background, so especially if I've had just like a long day of like, you know, trying to break things and QA test and all that stuff, when I come home, my brain doesn't completely turn off, and so I'm just like, oh man, that's not right. Oh, they shouldn't have done that. Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
Okay, so I know Linelight just came out, but do you have any like future projects on the horizon?
I have an idea.
Okay.
I don't know what the mechanics are, but it's a nugget of an idea, and I'm not really publicizing it yet because it is still so I don't know if infantile is the right word, but it's just so it's musical, and it's very different from Limelight, extremely different. Aesthetically, it would probably be abstract as well.
Okay.
That's probably I'm thinking that's the only way that I could really pull it off, at least with my current budget, and my current skill set. Like I don't have a lot of experience with rigging characters and basically stuff like that. It would be very heavily story based, and it would be extremely musical, and that's about Like I could get into a little bit more, but I don't know if I'm going to explore this idea.
Okay.
Like I like the fact that it intimidates me. It is like a terrifying idea. Like it's just like it's so. I like that it's unprecedented. Nobody's really tried it before, and that's sort of like what I'm looking for. I want to see how far I can push my own boundaries, and I don't want to say like the boundaries of the industry because that sounds a little bit cheesy, but I want to do like I'm trying to look for territory that is viable, interesting, fun, and somewhere that's been somewhere far away from stuff that's been explored, and then that comes with the challenge of I don't have any experience in working with basically a lot of the systems that are part of this idea. Like it would be a lot of dialogue trees potentially, and just like a lot of single use animations and stuff like that, which I don't, never really done. Yeah, and also like that there's no precedent really to it. So it's not like I can take the things that have worked that other games have tried and sort of tweak them or improve on them. There's really nothing that the thing is I don't know what it is mechanically, so I can't say for certain how unprecedented it is. And I can certainly bring it back towards I'm speaking very abstractly, so for any viewers who are still following, like, but I could certainly bring it back towards like familiar territory, like making it sort of a, you have 4 dialogue options at any given point, sort of thing. I've considered that route, but yeah, I don't know. That's one idea. Right now, like I'm still focusing on Linelight a lot. I'm working on some new, like just a new update and a few new features, like speed runs and stuff like that. Actually, that's the majority of it. So that is what I'm focusing on more now, and also making like just checking in the forums, making sure people have issues, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Because it's only been 2 weeks, and the first week was just like madness of just bug fixing and patching and stuff like that. Because I never had so many people play it before.
Right.
So that's tapering off. Still working on Linelight, but yeah, I have this. I don't know, this music. It's so funky. It's so strange. And there's something really magical and different about it. But it is also really intimidating. So there's that idea.
So do you have any words of advice or wisdom for current or future independent developers? So basically, for someone who's interested in perhaps creating their own product, what would you say is maybe something that you need to look out for? I mean, we've already kind of gone over the fact that it would be very beneficial for anyone who's trying to create a project to have maybe like a producer to kind of, streamline things, to have maybe an additional person in an area where your skill set may not be exactly where it needs to be. Um, yeah, I could. There was one year that I gave a panel that was just about, so you finish making your indie game, you think you're done, and I ruined a lot of people's hopes and dreams with that one, because unfortunately a lot of people fall into the trap of the product will speak for itself. So, one of the things from my experience, there's budgeting, there's scheduling, there's make sure that you have the skill set, or if you don't have the skill set, that you're willing to learn, because just trying to throw things against the wall will work for a bit, but it won't work forever. So I guess something in that realm, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of like the most global advice that I can probably give. I mean, there are so many avenues I could take here. I could write like, more than one book on this material.
Right.
I've talked with a few designers or just, people in the industry before about this, and actually people not even in the industry. So I guess maybe the most global thing that I can think of at the moment is to just look after yourself, take care of yourself, and like, it's gonna sound goofy, but like, listen to your emotions.
Right.
Like, figure out what it is that you're feeling, in certain scenarios, and don't assume that you have to be upset, or that you have to like be really strung out to be producing great work or a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
You don't.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the amount of energy that you put in does not have to correspond with the value that comes out.
Right.
And that's really hard, for me still to wrap my mind around, but it's true.
Mm-hmm.
You can put in a little bit of energy into one avenue and get tremendous amount of success, versus, putting in a lot of energy into one thing and then it doesn't necessarily pan out.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like maybe like the lack of symmetry with the ladder there at least implies that, maybe it could go the other way around, like putting in a little bit of energy, whatever can make great stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's sort of, I don't know if it upsets me, but like, yeah, it upsets me a little bit. Like when I see developers or just creative people struggling or like depressed or really just totally run down, and they're suffering basically.
Right.
And I forget who said it, but there's a quote like, "Suffering is overrated,"
Mm-hmm.
and it is.
Yeah.
And there's another quote. I forget where I read this. I feel like a couple of places. Like, I've heard this from a few sources, but pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically like how you treat your scenario. So I guess the advice would be, like, are you enjoying this?
Yep.
Maybe like don't, I heard, okay, so I had a phone call with this, with a kid. This is, I don't know, maybe like 2 years ago or so.
Mm-hmm.
And he was interested in getting into games, and he's like, what advice do you have? And I was like, well, be open to the idea that maybe you might not end up in games for the rest of your life, because it's not what, you might find something else that you love more. Just sort of keep your mind open to that. Follow the things that, follow your curiosity, follow the things that excite you. Don't necessarily like, don't put yourself into a box, I guess, and say like, I'm going to be just working on games. And I know that sort of like opens up an potentially overwhelmingly seeming amount of doors or possibilities, but it's just more of keep an open mind than anything. Not necessarily to like other career avenues, I don't mean, but to like, if things aren't working out and it doesn't feel like they're working out, just like, what other alternatives are there for in the moment? I wish I had like, more of a succinct, just do this one thing and, things will work out. But
yep.
I don't know. I've been doing a gratitude journal every day, and that's been working out nicely. I did meditation actually for a while. I substituted meditation for the gratitude journal a couple months ago, and I'm just trying this one out now instead.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, meditation worked really well for me as well. Just don't suffering is optional.
Right.
Like, it doesn't have to happen. So that's my advice is like, if you're really strung out and things are sucking, they don't have to. And there there are always alternatives, even if you feel hopeless. Like I felt hopeless before, and like had the feeling that of like powerlessness, or like, um, there's nothing I can do right now, even though I logically know, like I already knew, I'd cemented the information in my head already that there's always an option that I have. I just wasn't really, it didn't feel like that, but there always is an option. Um, Reach out to friends and family, just this was the hardest thing for me. But step away from the computer and go for a walk or something like that. And
Yep.
that was really hard for me, like to, to stop working or something.
Hmm.
So that's like my global, I guess, advice for creatives.
Okay. So the final question: where can people find out more information about your company and your game?
Yeah, company, not a lot of information online yet, although there is My Dog Zorro Games Twitter handle,
Hmm.
so you can follow My Dog Zorro there. Post occasional things there, but the main avenue for information would be Batzerk, Batzerk. That's my personal Twitter handle. That's for development kind of stuff. And then there's the Linelight game, which is the word Linelight and then the word game
Hmm.
next to each other. And that's the Twitter handle there. And you can also go to linelightgame.com to find out more information about the game. There's a couple of things there. There's a pretty cool trailer. So if you like the trailer and you're like, hey, this is kind of neat, check it out on Steam or PlayStation 4. Yeah, the game is $9.99.
Okay.
It's about the duration that people play. It does vary. I've heard like 4 hours. I've heard like 12 hours, but generally uh, around 5-6 hours to complete the full game. And then there's maybe about 2 extra hours of like uh, some extra stuff, bonus stuff hidden in there. Yeah, so linelightgame.com and Twitter and also Facebook, Linelightgame. Game.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, sir, for taking time out of your schedule to give us a quick view, a little bit about you and, of course, your game. We wish you the best of success in the near future. And yeah, thanks, everyone, for watching this interview. And we'll be back with another Alter Confusion interview in the very near future.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.